history's greatest mysteries, deep in the Egyptian desert, an unknown pharaoh is slowly rising from his tomb, his skin peeling away to reveal a horrifying secret beneath. Who was this mysterious pharaoh, and why is he condemned to rise again and again only to be ripped apart by those who seek to uncover his dark secret? During that time, the new kingdom of Egypt had just ended and the land was ruled by foreign invaders. The Egyptians called these invaders the Hyksos. Mentuhotep II had been pharaoh of Egypt more than 200 years ago, but his body had been preserved in the tomb, kept alive through the power of the Egyptian pyramids. The priests had managed to keep the pharaoh's tomb hidden from the Hyksos for decades. It is possible that Mentuhotep II was driven mad with power, and that the Egyptians were simply trying to justify their own actions. The most famous curse is probably that of King Tutankhamun. When his tomb was discovered in 1922, it was said that a curse was placed on anyone who disturbed his final resting place. One popular method was to use magic spells and rituals. They often prayed to the gods to help them in times of need, and they believed that the gods would listen to their pleas. This belief in the power of the gods led the Egyptians to believe that the pharaohs were cursed. It is a reminder of the power of belief and the lengths to which people will go in order to protect their culture. They believed that if the pharaoh did not live up to his responsibilities, he would be cursed by the gods. The gods would then send plagues, famines, or other disasters upon the kingdom. This belief in divine retribution helped to keep the pharaohs in line. The pharaohs knew that they were being watched by the gods. They were less likely to abuse their power. These spells could be written down on a piece of papyrus or inscribed on a stone tablet. Once the spell was cast, it would bind the victim to the will of the caster. The victim would then experience bad luck, illness, or even death. Another way that the Egyptians used to curse their enemies was to use amulets and talismans. These objects were usually made from materials that were believed to have magical properties, such as certain metals, gemstones, or animal parts. The amulet or talisman was then worn or carried on the person of the victim, where it would slowly poison them, causing them to become ill and eventually die. Soon after the discovery, several strange and unexplained events occurred, leading many to believe that the curse was real. For example, the original excavator of the tomb, Howard Carter, died just 5 years after discovering it. However, it's clear that many Egyptians believed that the pharaohs were cursed. This belief was likely passed down from generation to generation, and it eventually became part of Egyptian culture. Even today, people still talk about the curse of the pharaohs. Some people believe that it's nothing more than a myth. However, others believe that it's very real. There have even been reports of people dying under mysterious circumstances after visiting Egyptian tombs. Another man involved in the excavation also died soon after, and yet another suffered a freak accident that left him paralyzed. These deaths and illnesses led many people to believe that the curse of the pharaoh was real. However, there is no evidence to support this claim. Most likely, the so-called curse was simply a case of bad luck. The tomb had been sealed for thousands of years, and it is not surprising that some people died after disturbing it. Whatever the truth, the legend of the curse of the pharaoh has lived on for centuries. However, this can also be attributed to bad luck. Curse of the pharaohs wasn't just confined to those who disturbed their tombs. Many pharaohs were also cursed by their own subjects. This often happened when a pharaoh became too unpopular or too oppressive. In these cases, the people would curse the pharaoh, wishing for him to die or to be stripped of his power. Sometimes the curses were even carried out. For example, in 480 BC, a group of conspirators plotted to kill King Artaxerxes. They wrote down their curse on a piece of papyrus and then buried it near the king's palace. Papyrus was discovered many years later, and it's said that ever since then, no ruler of Persia has ever enjoyed good health. But now it was time to awaken him so that he could lead the Egyptians to victory. They invaded Egypt around 1648 BC and ruled over the country for about 100 years. Their rule was marked by violence and oppression. This led to a lot of resentment among the native Egyptians against their rulers. The Egyptian people lived in fear under the rule of the Hyksos. They dreamed of the day when a great pharaoh would come to drive out the invaders and restore Egyptian rule. Welcome to my channel. Today, let's find out about the curse of the Egyptian pharaoh. First recorded curse associated with ancient Egypt dates back to the year 1739 BC. They sang and danced before his sarcophagus, calling on the gods to grant them their wish. Suddenly, the ground began to shake and the walls of the tomb started to glow with a bright light. Priests fell to their knees in worship as the tomb opened and the long-dead pharaoh rose from his slumber. Thutmose II looked around at his surroundings. He was confused and disoriented, but his mind quickly returned to him and he knew what he had to do. He rallied the Egyptians and led them in a fierce battle against the Hyksos. The Egyptians were victorious and Mentuhotep II was able to reclaim his throne. However, the pharaoh's return came at a cost. As soon as he set foot in the kingdom, he unleashed a reign of terror upon the Hyksos. He ordered that all of his enemies be put to death and their bodies left to rot in the streets. The people of Egypt were horrified by the pharaoh's actions, but they couldn't do anything to stop him. They had brought him back to life only to unleash a monster upon them. The Egyptians cursed Mentuhotep II, hoping that his soul would never find peace in the afterlife. They believed that he would be doomed to wander the earth for eternity, never able to find rest. Meanwhile, deep in the Valley of the Kings, a small band of priests were secretly guarding the tomb of a great warrior named Mentuhotep II. On the night of the autumn equinox, priests performed a ritual designed to bring the pharaoh back to life. But there may be more to the story than meets the eye. In the years that followed, many other pharaohs were cursed, either by their own people or by their enemies. Another pharaoh who was cursed was Ramses the Pigeon. His tomb was discovered in 1826, and since then, several archaeologists have died under mysterious circumstances. Many different ways that the Egyptians used to curse their enemies. The Egyptians took their religion very seriously, and they believed that the gods could be used to punish those who had wronged them. It's hard to say exactly how widespread the belief in the curse of the pharaohs was. Whatever the truth, the curse of the pharaohs is a fascinating part of Egyptian history. Thanks for watching. See you next time.